Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarvavide Namaha. So several questions were raised about the reality of Mukhabhasaha or the reflection in the mirror. So we have the mirror here with the reflection. So what is the reality of the reflection, Mukhabhasaha? So one view is Mukhabhasaha कि मुख आदर्शयोः अन्यतरस्य यस्य कस्यचित् धर्मः. Is this mukhavasa dharma of mukham or adarsha? Is it the dharma or the attribute of either face or the mirror? Kiva mukhasya, together is it the dharma of the two? Mukhasya or is it dharma only of the mukha? Athva dvayoh api dharma or dharma of the two of them? Vastantaram kinchid, or is it an independent reality? It is important to determine the reality of mukhabhasa because we are talking about chidabhasa. So what applies to mukhabhasa, reflection of face, also will apply to chidabhasa, the reflection of consciousness. So one position is mukhena vyapadeshat saha mukhasyeva iti chainmatam. It's called mukhabhasa. Mukhena vyapadeshat, because vyapadeshat, the nomenclature of this entity is mukhabhasa, based on mukha. Therefore, it is a dharma of mukha. This is one position. Iti chainmatam, if this is a mata, na, then it cannot be, because if it is the dharma of face, then it should only follow the face. Dharma of the cloth should follow the cloth. If mukhabhasa was the dharma of mukha, it should follow mukha, but no. Adarsha anuvidhanacha, the reflection in fact only complies with or conforms to adarsham, the mirror and not the face. Mukhe sati abhibhavataha. If it is the attribute of mukha, then wherever the mukha is, the attribute should be there. If orange is the attribute of the cloth, wherever the cloth is, orange must be there. But mukha is there, mukha bhasa is not there, which means that it cannot be the dharma of mukha. Dvayoho eva. Together it is the dharma of the mukha, face and the mirror. Then that also cannot be. Dvayoho eva api adarsanat. Because even when the two of them are there, if they are not positioned appropriately, then even though the face and mirror are there, there is no reflection. Adarsanat. If it was the dharma of the face and the mirror, then when there is a combination of two, there must be reflection, but that's not necessarily the case. Only when there is certain orientation, that is when the reflection is. That not otherwise. Yatha kathanchana sanyuktayoho. If reflection was the attribute of the face and the mirror, then wherever the two are, the reflection must be, but that is not the case. So, adrishyasya satah drishti syat. See, reflection is always there. It manifests when there is a proper orientation. Because it's there, satah drishti syat. It is not that non-existent reflection appears in a green orientation. It was always there. This orientation simply becomes manifest. The reflection becomes manifest. Raho Chandra Suryayo. Think of like a shadow planet called Rahu is said to be there independently. Jyotish Shastra Pramanataha, because Jyotish Shastra says that. Purana Adi Shastra Pramana, because Purana say that. So Rahu is there. And Upadi, when Surya or Chandra Upadi is there, that is when that planet appears. So what is already existing manifests under given conditions also. Why not? The reflection is always existing. When the Upadi, namely the face and the mirror, are oriented in a certain way, then the reflection already existing becomes manifest. Says, if that is so, let us accept that example. Rahoho prageva siddvastutvam siddham shastra pramanatah. Accepting that Rahu is an existing entity by Jyotish Shastra, Purana Shastra, and the pramana of the nature of Jyotish Shastra and Purana, even if you accept that Rahu is existing, Chap pakshestu avastutvam tasya sat purvayuktitaha. But there is a paksha also that so-called Rahu is just a shadow of the earth upon the moon, etc. It's a shadow planet and not a real planet. Avastutvam. Therefore, Rahu is not a vastu really, that can be cited as an example. If Rahu was an existent entity and became manifest, then you can say that the reflection also is an existing entity, becomes manifest, but Rahu doesn't serve as a apt example. In any case, it is already established that this reflection cannot be said to be existing because it disappears. You cannot say it does not exist because it appears. Therefore, yukti purva yuktitaha, by the yukti presented earlier, the avastutvam, that is avastu. Then another argument was made about chaya, which is the shadow. Now chaya, can mean reflection or chaya can mean shadow. So about the shadow it was said that shadow is something real. Vastu chaya smritehe. In the verse 34 it was said, chaya is vastu. Reflection is a real entity. Smritehe, because the Smriti says that you should not walk over the shadow of the revered ones. Na kramet kamatas chayam guruvadehe. You should not deliberately step over the shadow of revered ones like Guru. And that can be only when shadow has a reality. Madhuryadi karanam. And when you are under shadow, you feel cool and pleasant. So shadow is a real entity, otherwise how can you feel cool and pleasant? So these two attributes, or these two experiences, let us say, are Shruti, and the experience is presented as the pramana for reality of the chaya. So that also was taken up, that when they said, na kramet kamatas chayam, that you should not deliberately cross over or step over the chaya, the shadow of the revered one. Verse 41 said, chaya krante nishedhoyam natu vastutva sadhakaha. This is nishedha, that you should not step over a shadow. That statement simply means you should not step over it, only prohibits you from stepping over the shadow of Guru, etc. It does not convey that shadow is the reality. Ni arthantar nishtam sadvakyam arthantaram vadet. If that vakya, that na kramet, so you should not step over the chaya of the Guru, etc. It should simply mean that it prohibits you from stepping over the chaya. You cannot interpret the state to mean that it also means that a chaya is real, because two different meanings cannot be conveyed by the same sentence. Now continuing the verse 42. Yaduktam madhuryadi karidarshanat. Other reason that was presented in support of reality of shadow is that shadow gives you coolness, and the face of the person who is in shadow is pleasant, so madhurya is that you experience coolness, sweetness. Shadow could not create this effect in you unless shadow was an entity. Shadow, if you say, doesn't have any reality, an unreal thing cannot give you coolness, cannot give you experience pleasantness. This is called asakriya karitvena. Shadow serves a purpose. The fact that anything that serves a purpose must be real. For the Niyayika, this water is real because it serves the purpose of quenching the thirst. So also the shadow must be real because it serves the purpose of giving you coolness, giving you an experience of pleasantness. Chaya vastutvam. If that's the reason why you are claiming that the chaya or the shadow is vastutvam, is a real thing, tadapi anyatha siddham, that also you cannot establish. The coolness that you feel when you are in the shadow is because of shadow, or the pleasantness that you feel when in shadow is because of shadow. That cannot be proven. If it can be proven that the coolness you feel is because of shadow, or the pleasantness that you feel is because of shadow, then then you may even consider the shadow being real. So that is the reason advance for claiming the reality of shadow. Siddhanta says that there is not yet established that coolness that you feel is because of shadow, or the pleasure that you feel is because of shadow. So verse 42 says, Madhuryadicha yat karyam उष्णद्रव्याद्य सेवनात् छायायानत्वदृष्टत्वात् अपामेव च दर्शनात्. Says the Tika, Chayayam Upavishtasya Yat Madhuryadi Karyam Drishyate. A person who is sitting in a shadow, that he feels coolness, he feels pleasant. So you see that? Now, is it because of the shadow? That Ushna Dravyadi Asevanat Nimitta Asevana Nimittat. Is because the person has removed himself from the heat of the sun. So scorching sun is there and therefore you are scorched. And then now you come to what is that cool, that the film song, that Samsara Tapa is there, now I come in the shadow of Rama, All right. So thus you are scorched by the sun and now you come to the shadow so you feel cool. Is it now because of the getting away from the scorch of the sun that you feel cool, or because you are in shadow that you feel cool? Ushna dravyadi asevanat. So Ushna dravya sevanam, because of association with the heat of scorching sun, in that case, you are feeling hot and now you have given up that is why I feel cool, not that the shadow gives you coolness. The chayayaha, hetabhutayaha, tan madhurya is not the chaya which is claimed to the cause of the coolness or madhuryam, pleasantness. Kutaha, why do you say that? He is asking the Siddhanta Vedanta, why do you say that the shadow, if shadow invariably gives you the coolness, if shadow invariably gives you the experience of pleasure, then you can say that it is due to shadow. There is no consistency that shadow will necessarily give you the experience of coolness or pleasure. Kuta is asking question. Adrushtatvat. That there are instances where you are in the shadow and you still feel hot. Tatapyamana shila kuta chaya. If you are sitting under a shadow of a very hard rock, for example, you don't feel cool. Madhurya adarsanat. You don't feel cool, you don't feel pleasant. And so, there is no rule that being in a shadow will necessarily give you experience of coolness and pleasure. Apamevacha darshanat. That coolness and pleasure belongs to water. That you are scorched by the heat of the sun and you plunge into the river Ganga, water of the Ganges, and you feel cool and pleasant, Therefore, ayam dharma tasu eva avyabhicharat. Therefore, this dharma of coolness belongs to water, avyabhichara. Wherever water is, there is experience of coolness. Avyabhichara. Wherever the shadow is, there is no rule that there is experience of coolness. Because we are sitting under the shadow of a hot rock, you don't feel cool. अतः छायायाम उपविष्टस्य निवृत्त आतप संसर्गस्य. So nivrutta atapa samsargasya. Atapa means the heat of the sun. So, atapa. So when you are away from the rays of the sun, that is what gives you coolness rather than association with the shadow. Swavaikasya udaka madhurya abhivyakta. Whereas as far as udaka is concerned, there is swabhavikam, coolness and madhuryam. Chaya mudhurayati vibramahati. Therefore, your conclusion, the chaya is madhura. The shadow gives the coolness, pleasure, is a brahma because it is not consistent. You can say that about water, that it is cool and pleasant because it is consistently so. That doesn't apply to shadow. Therefore, your conclusion of shadow as a reality, because it gives you coolness and pleasure, is not right. So that was, by the way, because the chaya was mentioned. Vastu chaya is said. Chaya is vastu, and for that smriti etc. were quoted. So that is now dealt with here. So that also gets cleared up in our mind. Tadevam yatha mukham tadabhasah tadashrayascha. Mukham, the face. Avasa, the reflection. Ashraya, the mirror. So mirror is the ashraya or locus of the reflection. Then there is reflection and the face. Iti ete traha vyavahara drishtya vibhaktaha abhasante. Vyavahara drishtya. From the apparent day-to-day transaction looks like face is one entity, the mirror is another entity, reflection is third entity. Na paramatha drishtya. But from the absolute standpoint, the face and the mirror and reflection are not really different from each other, it says. Now that is, you can think about that, why they are one, I don't know. But anyway, so vyavahara drishtya. Paramartha asti bhadi, that's whatever you mean by paramartha. But the face is one, mirror is another one, and the reflection is third one. This is how the vyavahara is. Tad atma, tad abhasa, tad ashrayascha. Atma, that is in the place of the face. Ashraya, that is aham vritti. Abhasa, chidabhasa. Remember, aham vritti is in the place of the mirror. Chidabhasa is in place of the reflection. Atma is in the place of the face. About this you can say that they look different, may not be. Ityarthatrayam mitha vilakshanam gamyate. When we are ignorant, then we take the Atma to be one entity, Ahankara to be another entity, Chidabhasa to be a third entity. Mitha vilakshanam gamyate vyavahara drishtya. Until we have known the reality of the Atma, and therefore of the adhara, which is the aham vritti, and then the reflection is chidabhasa. As long as we have not known the reality of these three, so long we think that there are three different entities. Just as face and the mirror and the reflection, all of them can be said to be, you can say 5 elements, and you can say vasti bhadi priyam. So there is a common denominator also you can find and say that they are one from a given standpoint, although from vyavahara they may be different. Like various ornaments are different from each other, but from the standpoint of gold they are one, sort of. Iti darshtantiga maha. Drishtanta and darshanta. Now we come to the purpose of all this discussion about the reflection, etc., is to understand the chidabhasa. To understand who is the jivatma, who is the samsari. So for samsari, the transmigrating soul, you can call it jiva, various opinions were presented. And the conclusion of the author is that Atma is the jiva, Atma is the samsari. Atma in association with avidya, ignorance, and aham vritti, which is avidya karyam. So avidya and therefore the aham vritti, both of them get enlivened in presence of Atma. So you can say that Atma gets reflected first in avidya and then aham vritti. And because of adhyasa, not knowing distinction of Atma with the avidya and ahankara, that they are lumped into one, the Atma through the identification with this avidya and ahamvritti is the jivatma. Atma is jiva, samsari. Which Atma? Atma who is identified with the ajnanam and ahamvritti. So that is the Darshtanta. Atma bhasashrayaschaivam iti. So verse 43 says, Atma bhasashrayaschaivam mukha bhasashraya yatha gamyante shastra yuktibhyam abhasa sattvamev cha. Yatha mukha avasa ashraya, just as mukha the face, avasa reflection, ashraya the mirror, tatha atma avasa ashrayascha. So also atma in place of mukha, avasa, the chiravasa in place of reflection, ashraya, the ahamvritti in place of the mirror, gamyante shastra yuktibhyam abhasa asatvam evacha. Abhasa asatvam. Abhasa is asatta or unreal. Shastra yuktibhyam abhasa asatvam evacha gamyate. By shastra and the yukti already has been presented. Abhasa asatvam, unreality of abhasa, not non-existent. That is non-existence, nor the reality, but then sat asabhyam anirvachaniyatvam, called mithya. The abhasa is mithya. So this is basically what the Vedantin wants to come to. Atma, now Tika explains, Atma avasa ashrayascha. Atma tvapada lakshya chit dhatu. Atma means chit dhatu, of the nature of chit or consciousness, pure consciousness. It says tvapada lakshya. Mahavakya tattvamasi, the lakshya. The implied or targeted meaning of the word tvam is, the direct meaning is jivatma, svetaketu. Vachya. Where that finger ultimately concludes, rests, where is the parivasana, where is the culmination of this, is not Svetaketu, not the Upadi, not the Chidavasa, but the real abiding entity. In you also, there is a changing entity and there is an abiding entity. So as the changes take place in Upadi, prana, now we call prana, you call vakta, shrota, manta, vijnata. This is what you think you are. But when we analyze that, these are all changing incidental entities. What is the inherent, that chit dhatu, asti, bhati, priyam. Consciousness is the abiding reality. Therefore, when the teacher uses the word you, that culminates into the meaning of what you, the reality is, chid dhatuhu, tvam pada lakshya. Why is it called lakshya? Because by the word tvam or I, Shvetiketu understands it differently, therefore. Since Shvetiketu has his own conclusion about who I am, therefore that is called Vachyartha. But really what Shvetiketu is Chiddhatu, so you use the word Lakshyartha because tentatively that you is interpreted as Jivatma. Tasya anadya vidya tatkarya pratibimbitaya tadupadhistatva vaishishtyam jivatvam avasah. This Atma, Chiddhatu or Chit, as though gets reflected in mirror, which is a mirror. Anadi, avidya, tatkarya. The ignorance, self-ignorance, which is anadi, beginningless means, which has no cause, which is there by default. Tatkarya, what is the karya? The aham vritti, which is the immediate product of ignorance. Pratibimbitaya, because Chiddhatu, the consciousness that is Atma, Pratibimbita is reflected in avidya and the ahamvritti, which is like the mirror. Tadupadhistato vaishishtyam. Just as the face has the reflection is a vishishtata. The reflection is within the mirror. Similarly also, the Atma seems to be within the ashraya. The avidya and ahamvritti, as the Atma is in there, meaning that circumscribed by, conditioned by the mirror. Reflection always follows the mirror, so conditioned by the mirror. So also Chidabhasa follows the ashraya. Avidya and ahamvritti are the ashraya, and therefore Chidabhasa reflection will conform to them. So just as the reflection is characterized by being in the mirror, so also the Jivatma or the Vachyartha view is characterized by as though being within the avidya and ahamvritti. That is Jivatvam. Atma that appears to be circumscribed by the avidya and ahamvritti, which are come to a mirror, that is Jiva. Avidya tatkari upadhi ashrahidi tvam padartha. So avidya tatkari ahamvritti, that is upadhi, that is ashraya of that chidavasa, that is the tvam padartha. Meaning the vachyartha of tvam is the jivatma, which is the combination of the ashraya, avidya and ahamvritti, and the chidavasa, the atma that is reflected in that. So that is what I understand. I feel that I am within the body. I am within the mind. I am confined to the aham. Whatever be the extent of aham is what I am confined to that, circumscribed by the aham. So how I feel about myself, just as a reflection feels that it is confined to mirror, I feel that I am confined to this upadhi or ashraya of avidya, ahamvritti. So very beautiful model is given to us now. Now Shastra Yuktibhyam, when we bring to bear the Shastra, what does Shastra say about the nature of this jiva? What does the yukti say about that? Abhasa asattvameva cha gamyate. That abhasa jiva is asatvam, meaning that it is unreal. Atma alone is real, the jivatvam is unreal. When you say jiva means jivatvam. In jiva there is atma also, and limitation also. So limitedness is unreal. The Atma aspect of Jiva is real. So Shastra and Yukti too are there. What is Shastra? Rupam Rupam Pratirupo Babhuva. That Brahman created all this rupa and then as though became conforming to every rupa, he assumed all the rupas. So many rupas are there, but then it is as though Brahman has entered into each one of these upadhis and has assumed this form. Just as Agni Rathaiko Bhuvanam Pravishtaha Rupam Rupam Pratirupo Bahuva, that's what it is. That fire is really formless. As though enters many pieces of charcoal and becomes many embers having the form of charcoal. So formless fire becomes as though possessed of form. So also the formless, attributeless consciousness or Atma becomes as though possessed of the form and attributes of the Upadhi. Indro Mayavihi Pururupa Hiyate. Same thing. Indra the Parameshwara, because of Maya, appears to be Pururupa of many rupas, many forms. Anishaya Shoshati Muhyamana. The Jivatma is described in Mundakopanishad. Samane Vrakshe Purusho Nimagna. Even though the Jivatma is the same tree, same ashraya as Paramatma, meaning the true nature of Jivatma is Paramatma. But then Mukhyamana, because of very much identified with this Adhara, Upadhi is Adhara. You can say body, mind, sense complex itself is Adhara. Avidya and all the products of Avidya. Aham Buddhi is there, Aham Vritti is there, Buddhi is there, mind is there, sense organs, body, all the products of Avidya. So identification extends from avidya all the way to the body. Deha chetanatamaga, that's how the body also becomes enlivened, becomes the object of identification. Anisha, therefore Atma feels as limited and helpless as the upadhis. Mukhyamana shochati, and therefore the self grieves only because of finding itself limited and helpless. Ityadi, this is Shruti. Eko vashi sarabhutantaratma ekam rupam bahudayah karoti. Ityadi Shruti. Again, Ekastat eko vashi sarabhutantaratma. One non-dual ruler, controller, vashi. Sarabhutantaratma, the self of all the beings. Ekam rupam bahudayah karoti, who manifests variously. His one form is made manifest variously. Meaning bahuda is only the appearance of one. That's the idea. The self, who is one, makes himself appear in manifold ways. That's called the creation. Ityadi Shrutescha. What is Yukti? Tatha buddhyadehe vishayantasya agamapayana drushyasya. So first of all, drushya. What is drushya? Buddhyadehe vishayantasya. Beginning from buddhi to manaha to indriyani to sense objects. Buddhyadehe vishayantasya. Beginning from buddhi, ending with vishaya, the sense object. Agamapayana, all of them are incidental, now there, then not there. The deep sleep state, none of them is there, waking they are there, in dream they are in different way. Drushyasya, all of them are drushya, meaning the objects of awareness. Now, when can all these things manifest themselves? When can the objects manifest themselves? Only when they are illumined by sense organs. When can sense organs gain the capacity to illumine? When they are empowered by the mind. How would the mind be able to empower sense organs? When it is illumined by the consciousness. So therefore, all of these are enlivened. So the self enlivens the buddhi, which in turn enlivens the sense organs, which in turn enlivens the body and then the sense objects. All of these are achetana by themselves. And still they act as though they are alive. That cannot be unless that is imparted, the liveliness is imparted and is by the Atma consciousness. Nitya Siddha Sakshi Atmani Adhyasa Vyatirekena. Unless all of these are superimposed upon the Atma who is Nitya Siddha, they are all Agamapai. All this beginning from buddhi to everything is all Agamapai, subject to coming and going, where Atma is ever there, ever steady, ever shining in its own glory. Adhyasa Vyatireka, unless Atma imparts consciousness to all of these, they cannot make themselves evident. So fact that all of these unconscious entities, beginning from buddhi all the way to sense organ, objects, they have the sfuranam, they manifest themselves, they make themselves known. That shows that that cannot be unless the enlivenment has come from Atma. Adhyasa Vyatirekena Sunasatya Anupatte. These things gain satta because of Atma, gain sfuranam because of Atma, because themselves they do not possess satta sfuranam. So asti bhati is imparted to buddhi and everything by Atma. And therefore, Atma is real, they are all unreal. Iti yuktescha. What is unreal means? A real thing should exist on its own and shine on its own. The problem is that the sense objects and the body and the sense organs and the buddhi, all of them appear to shine. But they could not do so unless they were superimposed upon or they were enlivened by self, that is consciousness. Therefore, they are unreal. Unreal means they don't possess their own sfuranam or satta. Ityadi yuktescha pratyagatma eva ekasyeva sattvam. Only pratyagatma is real. Abhasade, everything else, which is the adhara and the abhasa. Adhara, avidya, ahankara, buddhi, manaha, sense organs, they are all adhara, where the consciousness gets reflected. In the reflection, all of these are asat, meaning they are all unreal. What is asatvam? Paramat sattva bhavascha. They don't have the true, absolute reality. They have an apparent reality, not absolute reality. Kamyate nischyate ityartha. So, Maya, the Shruti and the Yukti, this is the conclusion that we come to. The Atma, the Chid Dhatu, Vittvampada Lakshya is Satyam, and rest of the Upadi, which acts as Adhara for the Chidabhasa reflection, is all Asat, meaning Mithya. Meaning now there and not there, which can be dismissed. Basically, what is Mithya is that which can be Nishiddha, negated, Nisheda Yogya. Meaning that you have freedom to withdraw your awareness from upadhi. Your freedom to become free from, your freedom to withdraw your attention from the sense objects, from the body, from the mind, from the intellect, and focus totally upon the self without being aware of anything else. As far as self is concerned, you cannot not but be aware. Other things are concerned, you can just drop them. So they are incidental, they are badhayogya, they are mithya. So this is the prakriya that Vedanta presents of how to know Atma or how to become abide in Atma is by recognizing mithyatvam, meaning incidentalness, inconsequentiality. Mithya means inconsequential. So stop giving importance to that. Stop giving, raising them the status of the Atma. Recognize what they are. Then all you are is Atma, that alone remains. So this is Vedanta prakriya of the Satya and Mithya. The yoga is own prakriya of withdrawing the mind, etc. But this is Vedanta prakriya of Viveka. Then nanu evam sati tvanmate samsara mokshayoho ashraya bhavat. So samsara's ashraya is not unreal. So moksha also has there is no real ashraya. There is no real samsari. The idea is that there is no real samsari. Samsara ashraya, samsari is the ashraya of samsara. But you establish that so-called ashraya of avidya, ahankara, etc. is not really there. So samsara has no ashraya. There is no real samsari who is the ashraya of samsara. So there is no mukta also. So this avidya, etc. are proven to be unreal. That means that samsari doesn't have real locus other than imagination, identification, adhyasa. Then moksha also doesn't have ashraya, because who is there to be liberated? So samsara, moksha, ashraya bhavat, what we call ashraya as avidya all the way up to the Vishaya is not really there. Therefore, that cannot act as ashraya of the samsara. So it cannot also act as ashraya of moksha. Anupatti eva. Therefore, according to you, there is no real samsara and there is no real moksha, because there is no ashraya or there is locus for samsara and moksha. Samsara is not there, mukta also is not there. Both of them are asat. Ni atma tadavasa tadashranam anyatamasya militanam va samsadi ashrayatam ghatadeti shankate. Therefore, there cannot be samsara and there cannot be moksha also if there is no ashraya. Ni atma tadavasa tadashranam anyatamasya. Atma, chidavasa, and the aham vritti. Either any one of them or together. Samsara, the ashrayatvam, none of them, or either individually or together, they cannot qualify to be ashraya, the locus of samsara. Therefore, there is no samsara, according to you. He says, samsara can be there, anything can be there, provided there is ashraya, something to support it, sustain it. But according to you, there is all this is avidya, etc. are all unreal. So for samsara there is no ashraya, there is no real samsara, ashraya, or real samsari, nor there is real mukta also. So is that what you mean? That according to you there is no, so anupatti, samsara, moksha, samsara also is not there, moksha also is not there. So from what you say, this is what we arrive at. If there is no ashraya of samsara, then there is no samsari. There is no ashraya of moksha, then there is no mukta. So there is no samsara, there is no mukta. Is that what you are trying to say? This what you say amounts to this? So, this is Shanka, next verse. Nadrusher avikaritvat avasasya vastutah nachititvad ahankartuh kasya samsarita bhave. So now we come to real Vedanta. So, all right. So this is a Druk Drishya Viveka, is the same question in fact. Drushe avikaritvat. Drushi means consciousness, the drashta, the sakshi, the witness. Avikaritvat is changeless consciousness. Avasasyavi vastutah, and avasa chidavasa, you just proven by Shruti Smran Yukti that it is not a real entity. Na achititvat ahankartu. Avasa is conscious, all right, but not real. Ahankara, which is the ashraya like a mirror, also is unconscious. Ahamvritti is unconscious by itself, achetana. Ahamvritti is like a mirror, chidavasa is the reflection, but the ahamvritti itself is unconscious, chidavasa is unreal. Kasya samsari, Atma cannot be samsari because it is limitless. Chidavasa cannot be samsari because unreal. Ahankara cannot be samsari because it is unconscious. Samsari must be a conscious entity, so ahankara is not conscious entity. Chidavasa can be, Chidavasa is unreal, so there is no real samsari. And Atma cannot be samsari. Kasya samsarita bhavet. Please tell us who is the samsari? So Tikakara says, samsaro nama jnatrutva, kartrutva, bhoktrutva lakshana, vikarupa, upachaya. So what is called samsara? Jnatrutva, kartrutva, bhoktrutva, kartrutva, bhoktrutva, pramatrutva, or jnatrutva. So identification with the organs of action makes you karta. Identification with the organs of perception makes you bhokta. And identification with the buddhi makes you pramata. So this is a typical samsari. Karta, bhokta, pramata. Vikarupa, upachaya is always in a flux. Karta is changing, bhokta is changing, pramata is changing, vikarupa. So this upachaya, this whole assemblage of this karta, bhokta, pramata, all the time changing is called samsara. So vikarupa upachaya of the karta, bhokta, pramata. The vikara or always changing upachaya or that assemblage or growth is called samsara. And what is tat atyandik apachayasya moksha? And all of the apachaya, the complete exhaustion. Upachaya means growing, apachaya means declining. When these things grow, that's what you call sankartatva, bhoktrutva, pramatrutva, that's called samsara. When all of them decline, there is no kartrutva, no bhoktrutva, no pramatrutva, that's called moksha. So, Purva Paksha is explained by the Tikakara. Tathacha tabhyam kramena sambadhyamano vikari syat. Therefore, suppose Atma, there is bandhan and moksha. So first of all, bandha, bondage, moksha, liberation are defined. You say Atma is right now bound, samsari, and then becomes liberated. So Atma first becomes associated with bondage, that's why it's called bound, then becomes associated with liberation, is called liberated. So baddha and mukta. Vikari sihat. So Atma gets associated with bondage and then liberation, therefore. So bondage and liberation are changing, vikara, therefore Atma, who becomes associated with or joined with bondage first and then liberation also becomes vikari. Atma also undergoes change, now it is bound, then it is liberated. तत्र दृशेः चैतन्य ekarasasyapi na samsarita bhavet. So now we want to know who is the samsari? Who gets associated with the bondage and liberation? Who is the samsari? Now Atma or consciousness cannot be samsari because Chaitanya ekarasasyapi na samsarita bhavet. See, Atma is ekarasa. Vikara means rasa keeps changing, you know. If samsara is bound, samsara is liberated, but Atma is Chaitanya ekarasa, therefore it cannot undergo change, therefore it cannot be samsari. Why? Avikaritvat, that's the hetu. Because Atma or consciousness, avikari, therefore it cannot undergo the transformation of being bound and liberated. Kutastatvat, being changeless. So Atma cannot be samsari. First, what is samsara is explained. Samsara is explained. Samsara is the one who is now bound and then liberated. And vikari. Atma doesn't qualify, therefore Atma cannot be samsari. Tatha abha, next entity is abhasa, is a samsari. Abhasasyapi, the samsari bhavediti, purva nakaram adaya anvaya. So abhasasya, you have to add na drushehe vikaritvat samsaritvam, na abhasasyapi avastutah samsaritvam. Abhasa also cannot be samsari because abhasa is not a real entity. Purokta yuktya tasya avastutva nisyat. By the yukti that we provided just now, abhasa is proven to be neither sat nor asat, anirvachaniya, therefore mithya. So it's not a vastu. Shunyasya na kopi atishaya sambhava, when abhasa is not there in reality. And so it's not it doesn't have any substantiality. Shunya means what? Doesn't possess any substantiality. So how that something that does not possess substantiality can now become bound, and then how can it become liberated? For something to become bound, it must have some substance. Then it becomes liberated. Abhasa doesn't have a substance. So how can abhasa become bound and liberated when it doesn't have substance? Shunya avastunah shunyasya na kopi atiya sambhava ityartha, which is not a tangible entity. How can it grow and how can it decline? So abhasa also cannot be samsari. Achititvat ahankartuhu ahankarasya abhasa ashratvan abhimatasya ahankara is said to be the ashraya, like a mirror of abhasa, chidabhasa, reflection of consciousness. Understand, when you use the word reflection, it's a model. Don't imagine a real reflection and stuff like that. It's a model. Because no example will apply in every way, and if you stretch that example, it can only create confusion. So we don't take these things literally in its total sense. Reflected consciousness, that is the expression that we use. Doesn't mean that consciousness is reflected. Consciousness, is formless, can't be reflected, and the mind is not separate medium to reflect. But effect is similar to as though consciousness is reflected. Ahankartu ahankarasya abhasa ashtetvan abhimatasya achititvat jadatvat. So, ahankara is achit, jada. How can it be samsari? Samsari must be a live fellow who can feel something, Ahankara cannot. Abhasa is no substance, therefore it cannot be samsari. Atma is then qualified to be samsari because it can't feel and change. Two fellows, Atma doesn't feel. And then Ahankara also doesn't feel. Atma is consciousness, so cannot feel. Ahankara is unconscious, cannot feel. So who will feel samsara? Na samsara na bhavet. Jnātrutva sukha-dukkhādi bhoktrutva swarupasya samsarasya jadāshrayatva sambhava. See, jnata is a conscious entity, changes. and responds. As the object of jnanam change, the jnata responds. Ghata jnata, pata jnata, matha jnata. Then sukhi dukhi also, as the situations change, then also the samsari responds by being sukhi, by dukhi, karta, bhokta. So this is the samsara. And it is a live entity, therefore ahankara, which is jada, cannot be the samsari. So ahankara, which is jada, cannot really be ashraya of the samsara because they are chetana. Ahankara ka samsari, ahankara cannot be samsari because ahankara is achetana, cannot feel kartrutva, bhoktrutva. Avasa cannot be samsari because it is not real. Atma cannot be samsari because it is not qualified. It can, cannot be bound, cannot be associated with anything. Nasanga. Ataha tvanmate kasya samsarita bhavet. So Purva Pakshi asks Siddhanti, in your opinion, who is the samsari? Moksho vayati, then who will become mukta also? Who becomes mukta, liberated? One is samsari. But you can't establish who is the samsari. Then who is the mukta? Who is the liberated one? Na kasyapi iti vadat. So we say nobody. We say the anubhavi. But how about we experience samsara? And it doesn't make sense. This is the whole idea. Na kasyapi, if you say that none of Atma is not samsari, Ahankara is not samsari, Abhasa is not samsari, iti vadataha. So you are denying samsara, but we experience anubhava virodha, but we experience samsara. So how do we explain that experience? So that's a Purva Paksha. So this is how then Siddhanti, यदि एवं अनुरूपिताश्रयो संसार मोक्षो तर्हि मा भूतां परमार्थो कस्यापि इति. So Vedantin says, Siddhanti, that thus by logic or reasoning you cannot arrive at samsara of anybody, then ma bhutam paramartho, then let there be nobody samsari in real sense. Paramartho kasyapi samsara, let there be no samsara, let there be no real samsara, no real moksha, because you can't arrive at it logically. So why not we conclude that there is no real samsara of anybody, there is no real moksha of anybody. Mahabhutam paramartho means what? Dual. Paramartho samsara moksha. Mahabhutam again, the dvivachanam, let then may there not be samsara moksha for anybody, because we can't logically arrive at that. So let that be the position. If this is what the Siddhanti says. So Siddhanti, that's what Siddhanti says, and thus replies that person, avidyadi. Avidya matratra evatah samsarostva vivekatah kutasthena atmana nityam atmavan atmani vasah. Atah avidya matra eva samsara astu. Therefore there is no real bondage, there is no real liberation, it's only just ignorance creates the notion of bondage and knowledge removes that notion. Let it be that way. Avivekatah samsara. Because of ignorance, aviveka, or this identification of Atma with Anatma, and that what causes the notion of samsara, not real samsara. Kutasthena atmana nityam atmavan atmani vasah. Avivekatah. So kutasthena atmana. Atma is kutastha, Nityam Atmavan Atmani Vasa. Samsara becomes Atmavan. Atma in Atma, samsara becomes Atma. Samsara possesses its being in Atma only because of avidya. So says Tika, yata evam, ata samsara avidya matra. Because Atma cannot be samsari, ahankara cannot be samsari, chidavasa cannot be samsari. Who remains? Avidya. Yata ata samsara avidya matra. Therefore, samsara is nothing more than ignorance. Avidya matra, understand. If there is something more than avidya, then you need something more than knowledge. For all there is avidya mat, therefore all you need is jnana matram. Bhranti matra eva. Avidya here means avarana and vikshepa. Of the nature of bhranti or notion. The samsara is the nature of just bhranti or notion. Give an example, swapna vadastu. Just as in dream you feel that there is real world. So that's an example of what is called bhranti. Swapna is the example of what is called bhranti. And that I am a samsari is a bhranti comparable to the one who has it in the dream. Well, how does this bhranti arise? Avivekataha. Atma swarupa avivekat. So viveka means the true knowledge or the clear knowledge. But Atma swarupa avivekat. There is no true knowledge of the true nature of Atma because it's always mixed up with Anatma. At least we mix it up, not that Atma is mixed up with Anatma. But in our awareness, there is awareness of Atma as well as awareness of Anatma. And then not being able to distinguish that this is Anatma part, this is object, this is subject. Subject, object, both of them shine together, druk-drishya. Avivekataha, and not being able to distinguish between the druk-drishya. You lump them together. Atma avivekat samsara atmani iva. Atma dharma, as though it belongs to Atma. Samsara belongs to Atma. Atma dharma avbhasate iti. Samsara shines, appears as though it is the dharma of the Atma, meaning Atma appears to be a samsari because of aviveka. Iti yojana. Avastu bhutasya atmani aparokshataya saditi pratibhase. Avastu bhutasya. Samsara is avastu bhuta, not a reality. And aparokshata, but samsara is also an aparoksha experience. See, the reason why the knowledge of aparoksha is because the avidya also is aparoksha. Samsara also is an immediate reality. So, knowledge must be of the same nature as the ignorance. So, understand why they talk of aparoksha jnana, because samsara is an immediately felt reality. Therefore, the knowledge also should be immediate to dispel that. Avastu bhutasya atmani aparokshataya sat iti pratibhase. How can be so? That samsara avastu bhuta is not a reality. And how does it shine as an immediate experience in Atma? How can that happen? Nimittamah kutasthena atmana. Kutasthena iti tatra adhyastatvat sattaya stattavanati. So because the kutasthena atmana nityam atmavan atmani vasa tatra adhyastatvat. The kutastha atma superimposes upon himself all these attributes of avidya, etc. Tat sattaya sattavan. So therefore, samsara seems to be existing in Atma. Samsara is experienced to be existing in Atma as an immediate reality. That immediacy is because of kutastha atma, and samsara is experienced because of the kutastha atma, which is self-shining. So because Atma, changeless, Atma is self-shining and immediate, therefore the samsara also appears to be shining and immediate reality because it derives its satta spurti from Atma. So Kutastha Atma imparts as though satta spuranam to the samsara, which is not a reality. But because of satta spurti of Kutastha Atma, samsara also as though becomes real and shining. And therefore I feel that I am really bound. So the bondage which cannot be explained in any way, how do you feel that I am bound? What seems to give that substance or reality to my sense of bondage is because Atma is real and immediate and samsara is superimposed upon Atma. Therefore, the samsara, the sense of bondage also is felt to be mine, immediate, real. That immediacy, the reality, the manifestation is all imparted by Kutastha Atma. Therefore, Atmavan, samsara gains an Atma means samsara gains a reality as though Atmani in Atma. In Atma alone, samsara gains a reality because of the satta spurti imparted by Atma, Kutastha Atma. So that is why nimittama. What is the saditi pratibhase nimittam? Avastu bhutasya, the samsara, which avastu bhuta, which is not a reality, and still felt to be immediate, aparokshataya asat, it is aparoksha, immediate, and there real. Iti pratibhase, why there is sign there? When samsara is not an entity really, how come its sign seems to be immediately and belonging to me and existing? Because of the superimposition upon Kutastha Atma, who is immediate, who is Sat, who is myself and self-shining. So the samsara also gains the benefit of being myself, being existent, being such as shining. Tatra adhyastatvat tat sattaya sattavan. Because the samsara is superimposed on Atma, therefore samsara as though gains satta from Atma, spurti from the Atma, immediacy from the Atma, aparokshata. So satta, spurti, aparokshatvam, which feel about samsara, I know I am bound, I know I am miserable, whatever. That satta, spurti, immediacy, all is imparted to it by Atma. Nityam. So nityam atmavan atmaneva iti anyadina atmavata tatra dhyastatam sujayati. So nityam always, meaning what? Anyad iti anyadina atmavata, isn't it? Anya adhina atmavata. One who possesses the selfness which is there. So, anyadina adhyastatam, that this could not be unless this samsara is superimposed upon Atma. So it becomes Atmatvam, gets immediacy, gets existence, gets satta, spurti. All of this is because of the adhyasa, superimposition upon the Atma. So samsara, even though not a real entity, enjoys as much reality as Atma, as much immediacy as Atma, as much tangibility as Atma. So it is as real. How can something which is not a real entity gain this kind of status? That is because it is superimposed upon Atma, and therefore, so that is how superimposition upon Atma is explained by our experience. Since we experience samsara as an immediate reality, therefore, it is superimposed upon something that is immediate, which is Atma. So, superimposition upon Kutastha Atma. So, this is Prakriya, understand. That how Atma, Kutastha, ever free, is experienced to be bound. Nothing makes sense, really. So far, samsara doesn't make sense, bondage doesn't make sense. The Atma, which cannot be bound, is bound. How to explain? So, adhyasa is the prakriya that Vedanta gives to explain what what you feel, even though something it is not there. So, they are very careful that this samsara doesn't get reality in any way. Its unreality is always maintained. You give prakriya by which the unreality is maintained and experience is explained. So you must explain the experience. You can't dismiss. Yeah, there is no samsara. That's what I feel. What about that? So explain. And I feel it. So that immediacy is there. So this immediacy of samsara, our experience, our feeling also is explained. While at the same time also logically telling us, so emotionally I am a samsari, but logically I cannot be. You see? Shruti yuktitaya samsara cannot be there. So that is the goal. So what I understand in intelligence or buddhi that there cannot be doesn't make sense. But emotionally I experience that, so we have to now make this emotion. That is where the emotional maturity comes. The reason where we need the emotional maturity or antakarana shuddhi is to bring the emotion to the level of the buddhi. You follow? Right now buddhi, everything is clear here. This fellow is what he is. And there is no relevance at all. The way I behave is different, the way I walk is different from the way I talk. When I talk, it's this one that talks. When I walk, this one that walks. No connection, looks like. That's the connection we have to. That is called sadhana. And that is why we will work on our emotions. Call it impulses, emotions, whatever it is. We have to slowly, raise them, become free from their control. And thus, that is called otherwise, all this remains in buddhi. And doesn't become practically beneficial to us. This knowledge or understanding can become beneficial provided it comes down from here to there, I mean, a way of saying it. That means that we will be constantly aware of our walk, how we behave, how we think, how we do, and whether it is a stamp of my understanding or not. Understanding is there, the buddhi, and my behavior, my life now should gain that stamp. I must keep on monitoring my life and constantly striving to transform it to align with my understanding. Uddared atmana atmanam natmanam avasade. Lord Krishna says, may you raise yourself, rescue yourself by yourself. Samsara varido magnaha, that Atma is though which is drowning in the samsara of sorrow. That one Atma, that is the buddhi, has to rescue that from the one fellow who is drowning in this, samsara, ragadvesha, etc. Rescue. Uddaret atmana atmanam. Natmanam, if you don't do that, then unfortunately the tamas, rajas are there to pull the atma down, meaning that we will go downhill. If we do not make an attempt to lift ourselves, going downhill is by default. Because just as gravity always pulls you down, while on a hill, if you don't climb up, you will roll down. So also if you don't make an attempt constantly to bring in sattva and lift it, the rajas tamas will pull you down. Natmanam avasadet. Let that atma, bound atma, not suffer from a downslide. Because if you don't lift it, it will go down. Unfortunately. Atmaiva hyatmano bandhu, atmaiva ripuratmanah. Atma becomes the bandhu of the atma, becomes ripu of the atma. So, this is how the whole prakriya explains the nature of the sadhana also. You follow? The reason why The prakriya is discussed of this bondage is for us to get clarity about the sadhana for the liberation. How to extricate ourselves from this bondage or the chains, the mire in which we are embedded. How to extricate ourselves. So that is the purpose of this prakriya. This should not merely remain an intellectual exercise, but then how does it apply to our life? And first, how we discover how samsara is felt. So this is explained. Why do you feel the way you feel? Although it doesn't make sense, but you do. So number one, Vedanta says, don't give reality to this business of your feelings and stuff like that. Don't justify it. More you justify, more entrenched it will become. And so, by not giving reality, justification, you slowly extricate yourself. That's the prakriya. Okay, we'll continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om